We've all heard it. You'll hear it. Walmart's a great place to see it and hear it. The screaming and shrieking. You can't get away from it nowadays. But honestly, if you've been around a generation or two, you remember when this was rare. Not this is what happens every time you go anywhere. Welcome back to Far From Eden. I'm going to remember this time. Don't forget to hit like. It helps the algorithm. I'm sure YouTube doesn't like some of the words I say. I try to behave, but sometimes I just forget because I want to talk about what we're talking about. So, you can't go anywhere now. Used to be like you'd go to like Kmart back in the day, right? And there would always be, the screaming child and the screaming mother. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not just talking about screaming children. Obviously, you hear and see that, the tantrums in public, way more than you would have, 20 years ago, 40 years ago, etc. You just didn't see it like you see it now. I just want you guys to be like, oh yeah, that's true. That's a problem we have. And the thing about it is, why is it happening? There's a million reasons. I could go into so many reasons about society and morals and teaching and whatever. But here's the thing. The mothers are different. The women are different. The women scream at the children. The women get angry at the children. And I'm sure a lot of you would be like, well, I remember my mother got angry with me. Yeah, but it was different back then. It really was. I started really noticing this as a problem when I was tutoring a few years ago. I just did some private tutoring, nothing fancy. I just Facebook or whatever, kind of put myself out there, offered that service. And most of my students actually all of them were elementary school, which I like because first of all, the math is easier. No, but I do. I like the elementary kids. The ones that were a little bit older were the ones with the problem, like the attitude problems, the behavioral problems. And I'm like, I'd rather help catch that before we get there. But anyway, so that was what I had. And I noticed something. I only had maybe 8 students at my busiest. And something that made me really sad about the boys, and this only was the boys. I don't remember the girls ever saying it. And I have a couple theories why that might be. But the boys would say, oh, my teacher was really mad today. Or that makes my teacher angry. Like if I do the math problem, like this with, she wants us to do it this way. And, she gets angry when. And it was constant. It was almost every day when I would see a few of the boys. And a lot of my students were boys. And they would, it's like that makes my teacher angry. And I said to them, you can't make your teacher angry. That is not something you're responsible for. You're not responsible for her feelings. Should you follow the rules? Yes. Should you do your schoolwork? Yes. Should you be respectful? Yes. That's what you should do. Now, your behavior, good, bad, what have you, should there be consequences? Yeah. You don't turn in your homework, bad grade, you disrupt the class, etc., etc. I had to say all this to these guys because the boys were just fixated on going to make my teacher angry. And these are different schools, different teachers, slightly different grades. 3rd grade, this was my youngest, 3rd grade, 5th grade. I had boys in 5th, 6th, 7th, or 6th, 7th, 8th, like 3 boys that were, and each one of them, I don't think that I had one boy that didn't say it. And And when they'd say it, like they were worried and concerned. They weren't worried like, oh, it's a threat and oh, bad things are going to happen to me. But there was this a way that it like wore on them. It really upset them that this behavior, this whatever, was going to make their teacher angry. And I just wanted to impart, you can't make your teacher angry. You can't make anyone anything. The way they choose to react to whatever happens is their choice. That's not your responsibility. And you could kind of see their little minds kind of like blowing, because I know that their moms, their teachers, all the female authority figures in their life are basically putting their emotions as that child's responsibility. And it's so bad, because that little boy will grow up thinking, I have to like sort of bob and weave to keep this woman happy. And it's like walking through a minefield. And he'll grow up thinking that's his job, that's his responsibility, and that it's somehow possible. Now, the little boy's greatly worried about this. What are we gonna do? We gotta keep the teacher happy. And I was like, no, you don't. Oh yeah, the other thing I would always tell them is, you shouldn't actually know what your teacher is feeling unless she's feeling proud of you because you did a good job. There is no scenario where it is good, okay, acceptable as a teacher to a child to allow them to know that you are angry. It's not appropriate. I'll go another one further. It's not appropriate as a mother for your children to believe that you are angry at them. You can be disappointed in their behavior. You can be a little frustrated. Those things, you're a human being. I get it. You're not a robot. I get it. But so many moms, you're making me angry. That makes me so sad. That hurts my heart. No. Stop it right now. Stop it right now. It's bad. It makes those children think they're responsible for your feelings. They are not. They are not. You are responsible for teaching them, rearing them, bringing them up in the way that your husband and you, because you're in agreement, you're in alignment, or you wouldn't have married him, believe it should be done. That is how it is. You do not express anger. No slamming doors, no screaming, no cussing, none of that. It's not appropriate. They're little children. They are children. Do you know why they scream and have tantrums when they're teenagers? Because it's that commercial. I learned it from watching you, okay? My Gen Xers will know what I'm talking about. It's that drug commercial where the dad catches the kid like with drugs and he's like, where did you learn that? Da, 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 da. And he turns around and says to the dad, from you, okay? I learned it from watching you. And it's literally, like, it's true. You know, not the drug thing. I'm not talking about that. But, like, it's so true. They're screaming at each other. There's a comedian that's so funny. Oh, it's Jim Brewer. He has a whole thing where he's like, oh, and I did learn to do actual React videos. So that's coming up. I'm super excited. And hopefully I should do that one. But he's like, he walks in on a situation, right? And the wife is yelling at the daughter. The daughter's like a toddler having a tantrum, maybe a little older, maybe 7. And she's yelling at the daughter, and daughter won't get up. And I'm going to count to 2, 3, 1, 2. And I'm like, I've seen this. I have witnessed that. And he kind of makes a joke because the wife is like, I don't know where you learned to act like this. And it's like, may I suggest a mirror? ma'am, because you. And that's these women, like, oh, women are so good with children. They're so nurturing. They're so much better at raising children. No, we're not. You know why? All the screaming and yelling everywhere you go. Restaurants, kids have no manners. And it's like, well, why is that women's fault? It's women's fault because they're the ones running the house now. Either they're single moms because they divorced the man or they never married him to begin with, or they're living with the man they're married to him, but they don't submit to him. It's not his, he has no say. He's not the disciplinarian. He doesn't set the standard for the house. There's no order. It's just her screaming at the kids and getting angry. It's feelings and feelings and feelings. And guess what? When a woman is left to just do whatever, and you think, oh, well, she has so many feelings, so she must be so sweet and loving and nurturing and patient. I haven't seen that. The women who are sweet and loving and nurturing and patient are the women who are actually in submission to their husband, whom they actually do love in the woman way, which means they respect and they obey. He's a good guy, or they wouldn't have chosen him to captain this ship. So they're happy saying, sure, let's do it your way. I like your way. That's why I picked you. And now I'm glad I don't have to have the pressure of those decisions and the consequences of them. Now I just have to do the, let me do the managing of your, how you say it should go. It works. It's worked for like hundreds and hundreds of years until like 5 seconds ago when women were like, oh my God, we're free and we're going to become hoes and scream at our children. Like, that's what they've done. And I'm sick and tired of grown women screaming at children, being angry at children. I have seen a mother, and not like a stereotypical Kmart screaming in Kmart. Like, I've seen a mother that you would think would know better and do better, but you guys don't see what's going on behind closed doors. And because of my disease and the times I've had to move around, I've seen some things. And it's been a lot of different places. And I've seen some things that are shocking. And you'd be like, this is not what I see on Facebook. Like, I was so dumb. I was dumb enough to think I didn't know it was fake book. I really didn't. I thought, oh, people are sharing and it's so nice because we live so far apart. I really thought that. If you don't believe me and you're like, nobody's that naive, look at my older videos, you'll be like, oh, okay, maybe she's that naive. And I was. And I just, these women just, it's shocking because who's going to tell them to stop? They don't have that inner, you shouldn't do that. That's not right. And there's going to be women that are like, oh my God, that's not true. Blah, blah, blah. Really? Is it true? Okay, well then why do we have these problems? Why is what I'm saying actually true? Because when men were in charge, we didn't have screaming children all over the place. We didn't. So how are you going to explain that? What were they abused children? They were under control, and that's why. Like, I'm just thinking, like, how these wackadoodles explain this? But these women have to quit. I'm going to lose it one of these times. I really am. I'm going to lose it. I can't take it anymore. It's not okay. The things that we just like let happen, and it's these husbands, they've got no say. They can't do anything. I know of a father who's literally, he makes no rules. There are no rules. He never tells a kid no. Ask your mom. And I think it's because he has seen the first husband and how that it went for that guy, and probably thought he was the hero. He was the hero, not the first guy. White knight. And then he goes, oh, I don't want to say a dang thing, because just in case, this goes south, the kid's gonna hate me, My wife's gonna say abuse. And that's the thing too, like if you're a divorced dad and you see your kids like not that often or whatever, your hands are tied then too, because what are you gonna do? She lets the kid do whatever, or she screams at the kid, and then what are you gonna do? You're gonna make rules that she's not gonna follow, and she's gonna say they're abusive, and she's gonna purposely undermine them? I know, some of you are like, I feel attacked. I feel like you're reading my life, but it's because it's so common. But these women are out of control, and the screaming kids everywhere, and the women screaming back at them. Do people not see these symptoms in society? I can't be the only one that's like, do you see what is happening right now? And do you understand the implications? Because I have seen it behind closed doors and out in the open. And it is a symptom of what is happening in households and how kids are being raised. And it explains a lot. When you see kids, you're like, how did they get like this? And I'm like, I saw it. I see the beginnings of it. I'm like, the kid is 5, and I'm like, oh, good God. Like, I can see what it's going to look like in 5 years, 10 years. It's like watching a train, getting ready to go off a cliff, and there's not anything you can do about it. But I can't be the only one that sees this and that understands it. You can't yell at kids. I can't believe that I have to say that as a sentence. You don't yell at children. And my heart goes out to the divorced men too, you have a baby mama, ex-wife that's like that, and there's nothing you can do. And yet you go, well, you guys scream at each other all the time, yet the kids are aligned with you. It's completely messed up. But what I would say is, what I would say is stay the course. Stay steady and true. Because I have seen kids get to, 17, 18, maybe younger, and kind of go, especially girls. I've seen girls go, wait a second, my mom is a problem. Maybe my dad isn't all the things my mom said he was. Maybe those things weren't true. Because those daughters, listen, guys, your daughters, alienated though they may be now, there is a good chance that it will come to a point where they will see the truth of who their mother is. And I'm speaking out about the daughters right now because that's what I've actually seen, and I'm a girl too, and I could see my mother after a certain point and go, oh, yeah. And I mean, my parents weren't divorced when I was younger. They divorced when I was became an adult. But when I was a teenager, I started to go, oh yeah, I see the problem here. Like, I see who is the problem. Like, they're both problems, but I can see what's happening here, and it's not like my mom's crazy. So I started to go, wait a second, I think she's crazy, and I think she's expecting too much, and we're maybe overreacting. And I would have screaming battles with my mom. Oh, epic they were. So I do know of what I speak. And as my life has progressed, more and more truth. I mean, the more you learn, the more you look back at your own life and through a lens of truth, and you go, wow, that was, she was really more of a problem than I realized, and then you start to see it in other situations. And I think the boys start to learn too about their mothers. I think I've seen it when they kind of start to date and deal with women. Because I think that a boy's mom is sort of in a bubble, separate. And then he starts dealing with women. And I think that just in the man's brain, they start to go, I imagine that your all's brains make little beepy noises as they're computing. And I think your guys are like, beep, 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 beep. and you go, wait a minute, I see some commonalities. And you start to figure some stuff out. And I think that the guys start to see how they're treated by the women. And it's inevitable that they'll start to maybe think, hey, dad might not have been such a terrible guy. Now, if the dad was never in their lives because mom's like picked a real, criminal or something, or just never allowed him to be, then it might be pretty hard to overcome that. But if the dad is in their life and if there's some alienation going on, I really believe that if you stay the course, it can turn around because the truth comes out. And eventually that screaming crazy, they're going to see it. They're going to see it. They're not always going to be under that spell and think that, everything she says is right, because they just think that because she gets to define their whole world. But she won't do that forever. She won't be in that situation. So I just think these women got to quit screaming. And, maybe there's something you can do if you've got a wife or an ex-wife or what have you that's doing that. Let your kids know that you're not responsible for her feelings. You didn't say anything bad about her. You didn't say anything that wasn't true. It's entirely defendable. So, I don't know. It's helped me. And I would definitely tell your daughters that, because she needs to know that she's not responsible for her mom, but she also needs to know that other people aren't responsible for her happiness and her not being angry and all the rest of it. But these screaming women, these screaming mothers, it's more damaging than people think it is. It's just, we just gloss over it so much, and it's like, no, it's really, I know that, I have noticed, with men, the verbal stuff is way more painful than anything that could be physical to the men. And I have a feeling it's that way for the boys. Just the way they were like, she's gonna be angry. They just, it was really stressful for them. To the point they couldn't really concentrate or focus on what they should do in school. It's bad. So we gotta let these kids know that that's not your fault. That's her having a tizzy. That's her own tizzy. Be responsible for your own actions. And that's it. So anyway, rule number 536, why women drive me crazy. Anyway, I will see you guys on the next one. Have a good night.